All right, page 17 in your financial literacy supplement. And quiz yesterday, for the most part, pretty good. Some of us still need to learn terms. All right, I got some understanding if you're struggling with the math a little bit or still trying to wrap your mind around compound interest. That I got. If you're missing terms, study, get them, figure them out. Make sure you're marking them, make sure we're studying them. Keep up with those terms. No reason to be throwing away free points on terms. Well, let's go take a look at page 17. And you did the homework section 1 through 20. And you were permitted to use a calculator for those last few problems there. All right, good. Let's take a look at these together. First section, working with some signed numbers. What'd you get for number 1, Elaine?
5.
5. Number 2, right below it this time for some reason. Joel?
Negative 8.
Well, that's number 4. Number 2 is right below number 1.
Negative 13.
Negative 13. And number 3, Ben?
16.
Put the calculator down. Make sure you're paying attention. Number 4, we already got from Joel, is negative 8. Number 5, Griffin?
Negative 13.
Negative 13. Number 6, Michael?
Negative 18.
Negative 18. Number 7, we had to do a little order of operations here. Jalen?
Positive 21.
Positive 21. Excellent. Again on number 8, Corey? 1/6. We end up with 5 over 30, which reduces to 1/6. Great job. And number 9, a bigger number this time, is to take care of the water bottle also. Bryson?
This might be wrong. I had it incorrectly, but 63.
Not 63. Let's take a look at it real quick. We had a 98 minus 6 squared divided by 3 plus 1. What do I do first in order of operations, Bryson?
You gotta multiply.
Before that, exponents. There we go. Parentheses would normally be first. There just ain't any. But we do have an exponent. 6 squared. 36. We have 98 minus 36 divided by 3 plus 1. In this problem, what do I do next? Divide, right? We multiply or divide it, but I don't have any multiplication, so we divide right here. 36 divided by 3. I'm sorry?
Or 112.
Just 12.
Yeah.
I think I heard 112. Yeah, just 12. And then we just go in order, right? 98 minus 12.
86.
86, and then add the 1 to that to get.
86.
Or, if you want to think of it this way, class, you could say 98 is positive and the 1 is positive. Positive 98, positive 1, class. Positive 99, and put that with a negative 12 to get positive 87. You could think of it as positives and negatives also. 87 though is our answer. And it went perfect 1 through 9. Anyone just missed 1 on 1 through 9? Any questions on 1 through 9? All right, let's take a look at number 10. Using algebra, express, quote, the ratio of 5 to x. How would I write that, Elaine?
5 divided by x.
How would I show division?
Fraction mark.
Fraction mark. So 5 over x is the best way to write it. 5 over x is the best way to write that. Number 11, I gave you an arithmetic sequence. Ooh, been a little while since we've seen that. Joel, feet down. And I asked you, what's the common difference? Joel, what'd you have? 3. Now, what's the next term, class? 21. But I asked for the common difference, which is 3. Number 12, what type of expression is that? It's got 3 terms in it. So, Ben, it's called a? Trinomial. Number 13, what does the expression increased by indicate? Griffin?
Add.
Addition. Good. We would add things together. Number 14, from our discussion yesterday, we didn't get a chance to practice any problems yesterday in our last lesson, but what term refers to a plan to spend money wisely? Michael?
Budget.
A budget. Good. And then number 15, you would have had to go back and look through the blurb to find some of these things. I mentioned in the blurb several things that a spending plan or budget will prevent. What did you put? It's one of the things that I listed. Jalen, what did you list?
I put 10%.
Well, that's number 16's answer. How about number 15? One of the things that a spending plan will prevent.
Disposable income.
Well, disposable income is what you're allowed to spend. Okay, so once it's another name for your net pay. Remember, the gross pay is what you earn. The government and other things take deductions. You end up with net pay. That's your disposable income. That's what you need to budget. Corey, what are some things you can avoid, or what will a budget prevent you from doing?
Impulse buying.
Impulse buying is one of those things. Anyone have something different, Joel?
Bankruptcy.
Well, that's not one of the things I mentioned, but yes, ultimately it could prevent bankruptcy. Debt in general.
Paying interest on credit cards.
Paying a lot of interest on credit cards. Is that what you had?
Kind of. I didn't know we were supposed to look back. I put spending money you don't have.
Right, so that would be going into debt. Good. Anyone else have anything there? Late penalties on credit cards, foolish spending, just different things like that. Number 16, the Bible indicates you should tithe at least how much of your income, Jalen? 10%. Number 17, most financial experts agree you should try to save at least what percent of your monthly income? Griffin?
5%.
5%. Again, those answers came from the text that we discussed yesterday. So, hey, when in doubt on questions about finance, look back in the supplement, find those answers. Number 18, you were allowed to use a calculator for this one, and go ahead and read that for us if you would, Corey.
Mr. Arlington earns a monthly net salary of $2,400 and spends an average of $560 at the grocery store each month. What percent of his budget is
Allocated.
allocated to food?
All right, so he earns $2,400 net salary, that's his disposable income, spends $560 at the grocery store each month on average. So what does he have budgeted for food? What do you suppose we would do? We didn't get a chance to talk about this yesterday, but just thinking logically, if we're finding what percent, class A percent is a
100.
is a hundredth, it's a part, it's a fraction, right? So we should probably, class, make a fraction, right? What fraction should we make, Corey?
$2,400 over 500.
So this is the part, and this is what he makes total?
No.
No. The 560 is a part of the total 2,400, isn't it? Right, so we want to set it up this way. How many figured out you need to put 560 over or divided by 2,400? Do it now at your seats on your calculator. Or if you're lazy, just do 56 divided by 240 on your calculator. What do we get when we divide 56 by 240? We'll get it from Joel. Like that, 0.2333333. All right, now it says round to the nearest whole percent. Class, what do I have to do to make that into a percent?
Boing,
Boing, boing. And if I go boing, boing, I get 23, and then there's a bunch of threes repeating. So we'll just round and say, class, 23% of his monthly budget is for food. How many got 23%? Anyone get 23%? Again, we hadn't talked about it yet, so if not, don't worry about it. But does it make sense now? Okay, questions on that? That was number 18. All right, number 19. Go and read that if you would, please. And Bryson.
Mr. Johnson makes a monthly half payment mortgage of $650. If this is 21% of their monthly disposable income, what is their monthly net pay?
Now look at that sentence, class. This is 21% of monthly disposable income. And it says, what is their monthly net pay or monthly disposable income? It says, this is, are you looking at problem 19 in your supplement? This. What is it talking about when it says this, class? $650. Class, $650 is 21% of the unknown monthly disposable income. Do you see that even though we didn't talk about budgeting yesterday, at least we didn't practice with the math, I told you it's just percent problems. You just have to put in the correct percent problem. For instance, here, in the last problem, $560, that's food, right? That is what percent of the $2,400 they take home every month? We're just making percent problems when we work with a budget. That's what it's all about. Now, in this case, what would I have to do to find the total or the base? Anyone?
Divide
By?
0.21.
Divide by 0.21. And the nice thing is, you can do it on a calculator right now. So 650 divided by 0.21. It does say round to the nearest whole dollar. And what do we get for this, Elaine?
$3,095.
If we round to the nearest whole dollar, $3,095. How many have that answer now? Did anyone have that answer before? You'd figure that out on your own. Joel, great job. All right, does it make sense now? Do we see how to make budget problems into percent problems? All right, let's take a look at number 20. And this has a little bit to do with budgeting, I guess. Number 20, read that for us if you would. Ben.
Miss Wells makes $2,760 a month.
Dollars.
Month after taxes. If she tithes 12% and gives 5% to missions, how much money does she give the Lord each month?
All right, now technically, one would argue that you should be tithing on your gross pay, not your net pay. Okay? But Miss Wellis also is tithing 12% instead of 10%, so she may have figured out that 10% of her gross pay ends up being 12% of the net. I don't know. But the point is, 12% tithe, 5% missions. Class, what total percent of her money is she giving back to God every month? 17%, right? 12 plus 5 is 17%. And it's 17% of what, class?
$2,760.
Ah, what does of mean?
Divide.
So what? Multiply. Of means multiply. So what are we going to do here, class? Multiply. 0.17 times how much she makes a month. So if you didn't already do it now. And it says round to the tens digit. Ooh. All right, so the nearest $10. How much does she give the Lord every month? And Jalen, what you got?
$469.20.
$469.20. Now let's round that to the tens digit.
670.
Careful.
No. My brain ain't braining. $470.
$470. There. Did anyone already have that answer? Okay, a couple of you did. Those who didn't, does it make sense now? Do we see how to think through these percents? If not, we'll work on it today. Flip back a page, if you would. Flip back a page, page 13, or 15, excuse me. When we talked about budget yesterday, again, we've got several different categories of a budget. This is to help you one day set up your own budget. And again, you customize it to fit you. The two major terms you need to know from this page. What do we call a plan to spend money wisely, to pay bills and meet expenses, class? Budget. And the budget is based on the money you actually take home. We call it net pay, but another term that you might use once it's actually in your possession is disposable income. What's that called, class? Disposable meaning you can dispose of it as you need to, right? When you dispose of something, you use it up or spend it, right? So disposable income, this is income that you can spend as you want to. Some people, I've seen this before, you raise your hand if you've seen it, some little podunky trailer type house, and there's like a brand new Corvette out front. Anyone ever seen that? And like they make a choice to live in maybe a lesser house so they can drive a fancy car. Other times you might see somebody who, they live in a pretty nice house and you see this like old thing in front of the driveway, like, well, I guess they wanted a really nice house instead. Some people might decide, I want to be able to eat really well, so I'm not going to have a fancy house or a fancy car, but I'm going to eat really nice. You get to choose how you spend that money. Now, obviously, as Christians, we want to make sure we're spending it the way God wants us to, but still, it's disposable. It's for you to dispose of as you need to. Look at practice problem number 1 and read that problem for us there, if you would, Michael.
The Williams family has a monthly disposable income of $4,000. Mr. Williams has budgeted in the following way.
And then you see that list of all the different categories that he's budgeted his money to. Now, there's a couple of little notes there underneath. I want to point out here the house called the mortgage payment. We're going to come back to this idea a little bit later on in this supplement. The mortgage payment, look at the different things that are included there. The mortgage payment includes homeowner's insurance, property taxes, and the interest on the loan, in addition to, of course, paying for the house, right? So when your parents make a mortgage payment to the bank, yes, they're paying for the house, but they're also paying for their property taxes, they're paying for their homeowner's insurance, and of course, the interest that the bank wants to make off of them. So paying for all of those things. All right, so look at that little chart for a second, kind of get an idea of the different categories that you see there. Now look below it there. It says, find what percent of the monthly net income, to the nearest whole percent, the Williams family uses for, let's start with letter A, the house payment. At your seats, what percent is the house payment? Well, Michael, how much do they spend on their house payment?
$570.
$570. And how much is their monthly disposable income?
$4,000.
$4,000. So if we want to find a percent, we would need to
Divide.
Make a fraction and divide. When you do, Michael, what percent do you get for the house payment? Round to the nearest whole percent.
Oh. I got
Yes. Don't make this hard now. What'd you get? What's on your calculator screen? What?
2%.
Okay. What's the first? What are we dividing by what?
570
Divided by
4,000.
4,000. That's all. Just divide 570 by 4,000. Divide the part by the whole, right? That's a fraction in general. Part divided by whole. 570 is a part of the income. 4,000 is the whole income. When we divide, we get?
14%.
When it rounds to 14%. How many have 14%? All right. Now, car expenses. Do the same thing, but now find what percent goes for car expenses. And that could be the car payment, gas for the car, repair and service expenses, but he's budgeted $400. You might be able to do this in your head. $400 out of $4,000 is gonna come to what, Jalen?
$100? No. I just had a question.
What's your question?
Um,
Divide the part by the whole.
no, on the last one, I got 7%.
570 divided by 4,000?
I know what happened because I did that first.
Whenever I did it the other way, I got 0.02 something.
Let me get my calculator out.
I did it the opposite way.
570
Yeah.
divided by 4,000. You don't do it the opposite way. You divide the part by whole. That's every fraction in your life. Cut a pizza into 8 slices, right? You eat 3 of them. Did you have 8/3 of a pizza? Heck no, you had 3/8, right? We know part to whole. Now we're just applying it to a budget. Does that make sense? Part to whole. This is a part. This is the whole. Divide part by whole. We're doing the same thing here. We're going to divide the part.
Oh,
Yeah.
I forgot the point. That's
Right. It's 0.1425, and then go point. 14%.
Yeah, that I found.
Okay, now we got it. All right, so it's all clicked now. We all good with this part to whole thing. All right, let's not forget everything we learned about fractions for the last 5 years. So car expenses, $400 out of 4,000. What's the percent? Now she's got it.
$10. No.
Percent. 10%. There we go. How many at 10%? We're gonna get this thing off the ground here. Insurance, and this is referring to life insurance, car insurance, health insurance. What percent of the money goes to insurance every month, Ben?
8%.
8%. How many got the 8% here? All right, and then savings. What percent goes into savings every month? Corey, what you got?
4%.
Good. 0.04 is what it'll round to. So 4% for savings. All right, we got it now.
Yes.
All right, now look at the next thing. We got a little chart here, and now this time instead of finding the percents, we're finding the amounts. We're told the percents. Notice number 2, read the directions right above the little chart, if you would please. Griffin.
Complete this monthly budget based on a monthly net salary of $2,400.
All right, that's the whole class, $2,400. 15% of that, let me say it again. 15% of that is what this person gives for their tithe, and perhaps other like missions giving and stuff like that. So, what do we have to do, class? Multiply 0.15 times 2,400. Doing this at your seat as well. How much money does this person give for their tithe every month? Bryson? $360. Don't forget your dollar sign, of course. $360. This person pays 20% for rent every month. 20% for rent. Corey? $480. There we go. All right, this person spends 18% of their monthly budget on food. 18% on food, Jalen.
$432.
$432. Good. 6%. That seems like a lot to me. 6% on clothing. This person likes their clothes, I guess. All right. How much, Michael?
$144.
$144. Good. Medical expenses. Maybe they've got an ongoing condition where they know, or maybe medical for them is their medical insurance. I don't know. But medical is allotted for 5%. Griffin?
$120.
$120. Insurance. They spend 8%. 8% on insurance, Ben.
$192.
There you go. $192. 23% on operations. Again, operating expenses could be a lot of different things. Again, maybe it's your utilities and stuff. But what is that 23% for operations going to be? Joel?
$552.
$552, and then 5% on savings. Elaine?
$120.
$120. All right, so we got this figured out now on the percentage thing. All right, flip the page. Very similar to what we just did. We got a monthly disposable income of $3,000. And there you've got all your different percents. Figure out how much is given every month for each of these categories. There is a shortcut if you notice it. So after you've done a few of them, you may see a shortcut where you don't need the calculator. Your number 3.
Oh.
See who got the fast fingers in the class. Mention those calculator keys. Michael's done, Corey's done.
I literally just had to do it. Yeah.
Elaine is done. Jalen's done. Ben is done. Bryce is done. Yes, ma'am.
On the calculator, is there a way to show fractions or do you have to do decimals?
I have a fraction.
There is a fraction button on the scientific calculators. I keep continuing to show how not to use a fraction, like divide by this or change it to a decimal, only because it's a little obnoxious. All right, so let's check our answers here. Even if you're not quite finished with all of them, let's check our answers. 12% tithe should be $360. 23% rent should be $690. 16% food, $480. 8% utilities, $240. 9% on gas, $270. And right about now, we should notice a pattern. 8%, $24. 9%, $27. If I multiply the percent by 3 and stick a 0 on the end, so insurance $210, education $300, recreation $90, clothing $120, savings $240, of course. So there was a little bit of a shortcut if you noticed it about halfway down. Didn't have to do that. You could use the calculator the whole way. Now look at the next chart. Yes, sir?
Are you talking about could you take the 2 zeros off of 3,000 and take
the decimal off. So you're basically multiplied by 30, which I even think of multiplied by 3 and stick a 0 on the end.
Yeah.
Yep, is what I was saying. Now look at the next one. I've given you, bless you, this time a lot of different amounts of money that are spent on different expenses. You need to figure out the percent. But remember, class, to find a percent, make a fraction. Part over whole. Here's the problem. We don't know the whole. So the first thing you need to do for number 4 is if all of these different amounts are being spent, figure out what the monthly net salary is. Write it in the blank at the end of number 4. See a little blank at the end of number 4. Figure out what is the monthly net salary. So we'll see who's got the fastest fingers in the class. Call it when you've got the total.
$123,620.
What you should be doing is adding all the amounts here for number 4. See, there's a bunch of different amounts listed. Add those all up.
I get 3,000.
It's not 3,000.
4,000?
It's 4,000. Thank you, Corey. All right, everybody in the blank put $4,000. Everybody in the blank put $4,000. Now, figure out the percents. Divide the part by the whole. So for tithe, class, we're going to divide 520 by 4,000. 520 divided by 4,000. What percent? Call it when you got it. 13%. For the mortgage, 920 divided by 4,000. It's going to give us what percent for the mortgage?
23%.
23%. Now finish the chart. Fast fingers, fast fingers. And again, there's a little bit of a shortcut if you notice it about halfway down. I love shortcuts because I'm lazy. Corey's done. Guessing he found the shortcut. Now, do you guys just have really fast fingers? Really fast fingers it is, okay?
Okay, so do we, round to the nearest?
Here's whole percent, yeah. So it should work out that way. Well, maybe it didn't. You divided 600 is the part divided by the whole. Not the other way around. Part divided by whole. Yeah, part by whole. It's okay, you'll get the hang of it. That's why we have so many practice problems, is to make sure you get the hang of it. So we don't always get it the first time, but we'll get there by the end.
It's like when I try to turn it fast, it like messes up.
Joel's good done, Elaine's done.
It's like it wants me to take my time.
I know, right?
All right, for sake of time, let's hit the answers. Check the ones you got done, even if you didn't finish them all, that's okay, as long as we got the hang of the process here. So we already said 13% tithe, 23% mortgage class food, 15% utilities, 8% gas,
9,
insurance.
7.
Wait a second, $32 is 8%, $36 is 9%, $28 is 7%. Well, it's like if you took the first two digits and divided by 4, you'd have the percent. So 160 becomes 4%. 480 becomes 12%. 120 becomes 3%. 240 becomes 6%. So there's little shortcuts and patterns you can notice when it's nice, easy numbers. Okay. Now, admittedly, if the monthly net salary was $4,180, you ain't got no pattern you're going to use there. But nice, easy numbers sometimes work that way. Number 5, read that for us if you would, Elaine.
Rental agencies, apartments, townhouses, condos, etc. generally will not allow you to rent from them if your monthly rent would exceed 30% of your monthly income. If you made $10 an hour and worked 40 hours each week, assume 4 weeks in a month, what is the maximum amount you should budget for rent?
Now this is important to know, right? You check out apartment prices and that kind of thing one day when you go get your job, you're going to see that apartments cost a range of different prices, right? Some of them are really cheap. They're also a little sketchy. And then there's ones that are really expensive. They come with all the amenities and all that stuff, gated community, pool, granite countertops, all that fancy stuff, And so they have all these different amenities, right? But here's the key. What was the percent limit that these companies will grant you, class?
30.
They will ask you before you can rent from them. They'll make you submit to them your contract from your employer that shows how much you're making, or a pay stub if you've already got the job, right? How much are you making? And they'll make sure if our rent is over 30%, look at me, please. I'm talking. Don't be looking in the book around. If your rent would be more than 30%, sorry, we're not going to let you come here. Because they know you spend that much. You're going to have a really hard time paying the rent. And then they're going to have to evict you anyway. Okay, so we don't want that. So this person makes you, apparently, make $10 an hour and work 40 hours each week. Well, what should we do if you make $10 an hour, work 40 hours a week, class? Multiply. We can do that in our head, can't we? 400. That's a week. Now let's assume 4 weeks to the month. How much is that a month?
$600.
$1,600. All right, so this assumes your gross pay is $1,600. They don't want you paying more than 30% of that. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So, what's the most that they're going to let you spend on rent? And this is somewhat depressing. $10 an hour is not going to get you in a very nice apartment, is it? Elaine, what is it?
$480.
How many had $480? Yeah. Nowadays, even in a small market, Columbus is Phoenix City, pretty cheap places to rent. $480 is not going to get you very nice. In other words, you better be making $10 an hour. That's where a college degree comes in, or a high demand job. There's not a lot of people doing the job, and you do the job, you're going to make more money. Let's see, plumbers, there's a shortage. Electricians, there's a shortage. There's big money to be made in these low jobs. They make big money. Anyway, number 6, read that one for us if you would, Jalen.
Can you can get a Hulu and live TV, including ESPN Plus and Disney Plus, for $77 per month. If you make $2,200 per month after taxes, what percent of your monthly income would you have to be budgeted for the service?
All right, how do we find a percent, class? We make a,
Yeah.
and we divide the part by the whole. What's the part here?
77.
And what's the whole?
2,200.
All right, so find the percent you would end up paying just for this one service if you decide to get the bundle. And that's not judging if you get it, but what percent of your income is going just for this, Jalen?
3.5%.
3.5%. How many? 0.035 becomes 3.5%. All right, questions on that? All right, turn the page. Turn the page over to page 18 now. And we're just going to kind of continue this idea of a budget, but look at the little blurb there at the top. Joel, read the little blurb there under where it says following a budget. Nice and loud.
The key of following a budget is to carefully track all expenditures and the remaining amount in each category. If a purchase would exceed the allowed amount, that purchase would either modify to fit within the allowed amount or forsaken completely.
All right, again, the key to a budget, you better know how much you've already spent and know how much you still have to spend. That's the key. So let's look at problem number 1 and read that for us now, if you would, Corey.
The McDonald's have a monthly net income of $2,100. If they have budgeted 18% of their income for food, find how much they plan to spend on food.
At your seats. Find it. You use a calculator for this. It doesn't say that, but we're going to go and use a calculator for this. And Jalen, I think was the first hand I saw. I saw a couple fast hands in the back there, ladies. Jalen, how much have they budgeted for food?
$378.
How many have $378? Any questions on how we got that? We all good with that? Okay, now let's build on that. Number 2. Read that for us, Bryson.
From one, if McDonald's goes to the grocery store for 4 times each month, how much should she spend on the average shopping trip?
All right, if she knows I'm going to go to the store 4 times in the month, each time, what should her total be? What do we need to do here, class? Divide by 4. She has 378 total, right? And she's going to spend that over 4 different times. She can't spend that each time. Over 4 times she's going to spend that. So each time she should spend no more than, Elaine? $94.50. Does that make sense? Okay? So $94.50 each time she goes to the store for groceries is kind of what she needs to limit herself to. Okay? Now, number 3. Read that for us if you would, Michael. From number 2.
From number 2, as she is putting groceries in a shopping cart buggy, she is estimating the cost of her groceries. She estimates that she has about $103 worth of groceries. How far over budget would this trip be?
All right, so each trip, in number 2 class, we said she can spend how much? $94.50. She's kind of doing the math in her head as she's putting the groceries in, and she's like, I think I've got $103 worth of groceries. How far over budget is she if she's right in her estimate? How far over budget? Griffin? $8.50, right? She's $8.50 over budget. She's trying to spend $103, and she's only got $94.50 she's supposed to spend. Okay, now here's the key. The key to following the budget, class, is if you go over budget one time, the way to compensate is the next time you go under budget. Does that make sense? So if she spent $850 too much this time, next time she needs to make sure she spends how much less? $850 less. So if she's budgeted $94.50 and she needs to go $850 less next time, how much is she going to be able to spend on the next shopping trip, Joel?
$86.
Yes, $86 is correct. How many at $86? So next shopping trip, now how do you stay under budget like that? Well, maybe rice and beans, right? Maybe not buying as much meat. Maybe cutting down some things. And that's the way you have to follow a budget when it's tight. Now, maybe God will bless you with a lot of money and your budget is a bigger budget. Maybe you can spend more. Great. But if you are on a tight budget, how do you avoid debt? You keep track of things like this. You keep track of how much is my limit. Okay, if I went over last week, I got to go under this week. Does that make sense? All right, look at number 5. Let's start a new problem here. Mr. Martin has a monthly net income of $3,270. He's budgeted 6% of his income for vehicle expenses. Stop there. 6% for vehicle expenses. Let's figure out how much that is. Type it in the calculator real quick. How much does he plan to spend each month on his vehicle? Joel?
$196.20.
How many have $196.20? You need to be typing things in the calculator, sir. Pay attention. Stay with me. $196.20. Okay, so you got that on the calculator, yes? Everybody's got $196.20 on there. Now, he usually has to fill his gas tank 3 times a month. He's already filled his gas tank twice. So, class, what's on the calculator right now? That's how much he said it has to spend, right? Well, then he actually goes to the gas pump and he spends 48. So what do I do with that number?
Subtract.
Minus 48, because that's money he's done spent now. Then he goes again to the gas tank pump and he spends 52 a week and a half or so later. So what do we do with the 52? Minus that also. And he knows he's going to need an oil change later this month and it says that's going to be 54. So how much is available the next time he goes to the gas pump? How much does he still have available to him, Corey? $42.20. You see, it's kind of like tracking a bank balance, but instead of tracking the bank balance, you're tracking your spending. So when he goes to the gas pump and he's pumping in the gas and he's watching the numbers grow and grow, he knows his limit is $42.20. Stop it before it gets there. Or try to be cool and stop it right as it gets there. Anyway, $42.20. And parents do that where they click it off, try to click it off at the perfect dollar amount. People used to do that a lot more back before credit cards. They would spend cash.
Brecken does it.
Brecken does that. Maybe again, he's got a careful budget. Let's look at number 6, and I think we're going to have to stop with this one here today. Bless you. Go ahead and read number 6 on that note. Let's see. Has everybody read today? Think about everybody to read. Elaine's like, I want to read again. You blow your nose. You read, Elaine. Number 6.
The Franklins have budgeted $5 of their disposable.
Whoa, $5?
5%.
Oh, okay.
5% of their disposable income for recreation. They make $2,800 each month after taxes. Mr. Franklin pays $20 a month as a member of a bowling league. Mr. and Mrs. Franklin went to a nice restaurant and spent, including tax and tip, $84.60. They also spent $18 on a round of mini golf this month. How much do they have left for recreation this month?
All right, so what we got to do first is figure out how much is budgeted, right? It says they budget 5%. Well, what is that? So that's step number 1. At your seats, don't call it out. Write it down in your paper. Just write it down. What is their total amount that they are saying we're going to spend on good times each month? Now, once you got that written down, it should be on your calculator screen. Remember, every month he pays $20 a month to be part of the bowling league. So that has to be subtracted away, doesn't it? Then they go to a really nice restaurant. They spend $84.60. You'd be amazed, by the way, how quickly you can spend that much money at a restaurant. They spend $84.60 at a restaurant. Have a nice date. Maybe it's Valentine's Day tomorrow. All right. They also decide to go mini golfing. I love mini golf. And they go mini golf. They spend $18 for the 2 of them to go mini golfing. All right. So, how much do they got left this month to just take it easy and have a good time? And it's not much left, is it, class? That nice restaurant visit ate up most of that budget. Jalen?
$17.40.
How many had $17.40? All right, so let's go through the steps real quick. How much is actually budgeted, class? What was that number you wrote down? 140. Minus the 20 gets you down to Do that in your head. 120. Then you have to subtract the big amount, the 8460. And then that gets you to 3540, then subtract 18, and now there's just 1740. In other words, they're not going to be going out to a restaurant or doing anything really fun much this month anymore. They've used up most of it. Do you see how to kind of follow the budget? We're going to work on that a little bit more tomorrow as well. For homework this evening, do page 19. Page 19, the homework section, 1 through 19. You may use a calculator on 19, but that's the only thing you'll use a calculator on, is number 19. All right, have a wonderful rest of your day. You are dismissed.